Hey, in this movie I'm going to show you some of my favourite features of Future Audio Workshop's soft synth Circle, which I've used to create these patches. First up then, I'll show you how to make the Daft Punk style lead, which is really quick and simple to do. Starting work on a new patch is done just by hitting New, after which you can see the synth resets to a single, unprocessed module. And what I'll do first is set it to analog oscillator mode, which is where you find the regular classic waveforms you expect on a synth, like square, sine, and so on. I'm going to leave it on sawtooth though. Then what I'll do is use an envelope to modulate the pitch of the oscillator. Now the modulators all live on the right side of the GUI, and at the moment only the first one is turned on, which is the amplitude envelope, so it's controlling the level. And I can change the ADSR parameters by dragging the letters on the display. And the moving circles are clearly showing you where the signal is at when I press and release a key, which is handy. So to assign another envelope to the pitch now, I just turn one on, and then drag its coloured circle to a modulation slot below Module 1's core style. And then I can change the envelope parameters to adjust the way the pitch slides around. I'll leave it with a very short attack and fairly fast decay for now. Then what I'll do is turn on the second module and then activate sync. What this does is then use Module 1's pitch to restart Module 2's waveform. So instead of hearing the pitch slide of Module 1, as you do when sync isn't active, you then have a formant shift created by that pitch envelope instead. So it has more of an impact on the character or shape of the sound rather than its pitch. Then all I need to do is bring the pitch of Module 2 down. And then play around with the envelopes to get it sounding really nice. Next we'll add some filtering, and this is where it'll start to sound very Daft Punk-like, as the one I'll use is the mouth filter here, which is great for creating interesting vowel-like shapes. If I turn it on, and then crank it up. And another handy thing on each effect is that you get an output level and dry-wet control, so you can make the effect nice and loud without losing too much of the dry signal. Then if I adjust the formant blend slider, you'll hear the cool effects you can make. And you can change the vowel sound if you like. What I'll do now though is modulate this slider with an LFO, again just by turning it on and then dragging the blue circle to one of the slider's modulation slots. And I'm going to bring the rate right down. Finally, I'll just dirty it up a bit by adding some fuzz distortion. And if I want more distortion, there are 3 additional master effects here, so I could add some tube distortion too. And maybe some reverb. Next up, we'll make a bass to go with this, again showing some of the unique features on Circle. What I'll start with is the dual filter facility, where you have the ability to double the number of filters processing the modules. So I'll initialize the patch again, and I'll just keep it on the default module 1 setting for now, which I'll come on to in a bit. And then setting it to dual filter mode, you can see we now have 2 frequency and resonance controls for controlling each filter. It also sounds quite a lot more colourful straight away, and that's because you've got the combined effect of 2 resonance settings now, which is a fair bit of feedback. And you can set whether you want the filters to be one after the other or in parallel. So I'll choose parallel for this one. The reason being that I can then create 2 contrasting filter envelope effects on the one sound. So I'll set one filter to low pass and the other to high pass, meaning one filter chain is cutting out the high frequencies and the other one the low ones. Then I'll use the next envelope down to modulate the low pass filter upwards on the start of notes, having just a short decay so I get a brief downward slide. To change the amount of modulation, I just click on the modulation slot and then use the slider to set the level up or down. So now I've got that part of the sound right, I can apply some different envelope modulation to our other filter. Maybe going for a longer attack this time. And now let's use these last 2 modulators to get some more movement going with the sound. Firstly, I'll add a phaser. And you can hear that adjusting the frequency creates a nice effect. So I'll use an LFO now to shift that up and down. The effect I want this time is a synchronized one, maybe going up and down a couple of times each bar. And you've got the ability to blend waveforms here. So if I choose a square wave for the first waveform, then instead of having it jump up and down, I can blend in a bit of the triangle wave so it shifts a bit more smoothly from one extreme to the next. And another LFO we could have also adding some variation by modulating the decay time of the sound, so that some notes are shorter than others. Again, it could be nice to have this synced, maybe just a bar long this time. And using a square wave again, but having it slightly phase shifted, so it rises up in the middle. That way, the notes on beats 2 and 3 of the bar will be a bit longer than the notes at the start and end. So we'll get the bass opening up in the middle of the phrase, as you can hear if I trigger the patch with a clip now. And if I add some more modules now, so the sound fills out a bit, maybe get some wavetables in there to dirty it up slightly. And another thing that's useful are these EQs, where we've got parametric and shelving EQs, so I can easily sort out the highs and lows, which is nice. And the final sound is a pad, which I'm going to make really quickly just to show you the last modulator mode. Firstly, as I brushed over it last time, I should quickly mention the module mode that loads when you initialize a patch, as it's quite a special one. It's called vector phase shaping synthesis and is carried out by having 2 sine waves modulating each other, so it creates different FM style effects, where when you adjust the horizontal and vertical parameters, you can hear different harmonics being introduced in very pleasant ways. So naturally, it's a good idea to modulate these controls, which you can do with envelopes or LFOs, or in this case, the sequencer. So I'll turn on these last 2 modulators and have them both set to sequencer, and then drag them over to those controls. Then if I draw in a random series of bars, you can hear we get some interesting modulation. I think I'll speed it up a bit though, and smooth it out so the jumps aren't so drastic. And maybe sync it too. Then for the vertical controls, this time I'll use the random button to create a curve, which is a good way of trying out some different patterns very quickly. And I can play around with the modulation amounts and speeds to get the effect I want. Then, to give the pad a bit more weight and an old school feel, I'm going to add a couple of detuned sawtooths with modules 2 and 3. And I'll pitch them up an octave too. And I can blend in as much or as little of these as I want using the mixer section. And this patch should really have a gentle fade in and out if I want it to sound like a real pad. Maybe with a slow filter sweep too. And finally, I'm going to use the last LFO to add some tremolo, or a sort of gated effect. So I'm turning it on, and then dragging it to all 3 oscillator levels. Then, if I sync it, I can change the rate to set how many times I want the level to go up and down each beat. I'll make it a square wave so it's properly gate-like, but maybe soften it slightly with the blend slider. And the LFO level control can make the effect more or less drastic. So I'd maybe just add a little reverb now, and then that's the patch done. And there's so much more you can do with Circle, even using all of the oscillators to modulate each other, or any other parameters on the synth, just by drag and drop, as we've seen. So it's a highly flexible and great sounding instrument. Plus, although I focused on designing your own sounds, there are 500 really nice presets that come with the synth, and a randomize option for instantly creating new ones, which is also a lot of fun. For more information, check the product page at pluginboutique.com. I hope you've enjoyed this movie. See you next time.